Chosen one, I am going to rearrange the way you see everything that happened to you. This was not a tragedy. It was a divine heaven-authorized setup. While you were questioning your worth, the truth was already solidifying. They regret what they did to you. You're a real blessing, and they betrayed you for a nasty substitute that can never match your light. And before the betrayal, before the hurt, before someone showed you exactly who they were, let us go all the way back. It starts with what you carried into the room from the very beginning. You walked in with something rare, and not the kind of rare that gets posted about online, the kind that makes a room shift the moment you enter it, the kind that makes people feel things they cannot explain and cannot forget. You walked in carrying peace, real peace, the deep-rooted, settled kind that does not come from having a perfect life. It comes from having a relationship with something bigger than your circumstances. You had that. You had always had that. And the moment you stepped into that person's world, something in their spirit recognized it, even if their ego never would. From the very beginning, they knew you were different. They felt the quality of your soul before they ever knew what to call it. And that knowing, that quiet, undeniable knowing, is exactly what set everything that followed into motion. Because here is the truth about people who have not yet done the work of healing themselves. When something genuinely good shows up in their life, something that requires growth, honesty, and real accountability, they do not always run toward it. Sometimes they test it, sometimes they try to break it, just to see if it will stay broken, because broken things are familiar, and the familiar, even when it is painful, feels safer than the unknown territory of something real. And so they tested you, they pushed and pulled, they ran hot and cold, they gave just enough to keep you invested, and pulled back just enough to keep you uncertain. And you, being who you are, stayed. You stayed because you saw potential. You stayed because you believed in what could be built. You stayed because your grace was bigger than their games. While they were running tests, you were passing every single one without even trying. Every time you showed up anyway, every time you chose patience when reaction would have been far easier. Every time you absorbed the disrespect and still showed up with your character completely intact, you were demonstrating something that person had never been close enough to witness before. You were demonstrating genuine spiritual fortitude, the kind of inner strength that does not need to announce itself because it does not require an audience to be real, and that terrified them. Not in a way they could name or articulate, in the body, in the gut, the way standing at the edge of something vast and deep produces a sensation that lives somewhere between awe and the instinct to flee. Your presence confronted every unhealed place in them, and rather than face those places honestly, they stored the fear for later and began planning their retreat, but they took everything they could carry before they went. That grace, the grace you gave freely and they consumed without ever understanding its value, is what this entire story is really about. Hold on to that, because it is going to come back transformed. So you stayed, and while you stayed, you did what chosen ones do. You gave, without a scoreboard, without a receipt, without a running total of what went in versus what came back. You loved the way real love operates, fully present, no conditions attached, no performance required. Tolerant. You were the one who showed up on the hard days. Not just the good ones. Anyone can show up on the good ones. You showed up when things were falling apart, when confidence was low, when walls went up and the world felt hostile, and the words for what was needed could not even be found yet. You were already there, already extending grace before the request could be formed. And while you were doing all of that, while you were pouring in, covering in ways that could not be seen and would not be appreciated until they were gone, something was quietly happening that went completely unnoticed. People who are spiritually asleep never notice what is holding them up until the floor disappears. The blessings moving through that season were moving through you. The doors that opened, the problems that dissolved before they became full disasters, the favor that kept showing up even when nothing had been done to earn it, all of that was connected to your presence. Not because you were forcing outcomes, because you were aligned, and alignment carries access. Access creates results that look like coincidence to people who do not understand how spiritual things actually work. But that understanding was never there. Your peace was read as the simple absence of drama rather than as the gift it was. Your consistency was called predictable. Your depth was reduced to a personality trait rather than recognized as a spiritual force. There was no real comprehension of what it meant to be living inside your covering. And that is the moment the story begins its turn, because the person who does not understand what they have will always underestimate what they are about to lose. The comfort settled in, and with it came the slow erosion of what they owed you. Your consistency was read as a blank check. Your grace was interpreted as evidence that you had nowhere better to go. And then the subtle work of making you smaller began. A dismissal slipped in as humor, a comparison designed to shrink you, your name quietly absent from conversations where it belonged, a version of events told to others that did not quite match what actually happened. Your happened wine. If this message activated your knowing, hype this video to connect with more chosen ones on this journey. Slowly, and this is the part that matters, a case was being built, not against the person who deserved accountability, against you, because that is what people do when they know they are wrong but are not ready to own it. They manufacture a version of you that justifies the decision they have already made in their heart. You were called too much, too intense, too serious, not exciting enough. None of it was true. But all of it was necessary for them, because the counterfeit was already waiting in the wings, loud, flashy and chaotic, everything an unhealed nature is wired to chase. The counterfeit had no roots, no substance, no depth, but it was exciting in the way that only hollow things can be, because hollow things echo, and echo sounds like fullness until you realize it is just emptiness bouncing back at you. Now pay attention here, because the betrayal did not begin in one dramatic moment. It began in the accumulation of small dishonesties that came before it. Every quiet dismissal was a rehearsal. Every moment your dignity was bypassed for someone else's comfort was a rehearsal. Every time your name was allowed to be spoken poorly without anyone speaking up was a rehearsal, and you were registering all of it. Maybe not consciously, but in the body, in the gut, in that unsettled feeling you kept dismissing as overthinking. That feeling was not overthinking. That was your discernment doing its job. It was preparing you for the move you were about to make. The choice came, it landed, and right at that moment, the moment the counterfeit was chosen over the real, the second chapter of your life began. And something else entirely began to unravel on the other side. Most people read an exit as a loss. The world reads exits as losses, but heaven reads exits differently. Heaven reads an exit as an assignment completed, a blessing relocated, and grace protected from further misuse. When you walked out, when you finally, quietly, completely stopped making yourself available in a space where your gifts were being wasted, you did not lose anything. You were released, and everything you carried was released with you. Consider what you were carrying. You were carrying peace, favor, and the kind of spiritual covering that holds consequences at bay for people who are not yet equipped to face them on their own. Even at the end, even when you were barely holding on yourself, your presence was functioning as a buffer between that person's life and the full weight of their own choices. The prayers you had prayed were still working, the covering was still standing, and it was all invisible to the very person who depended on it most. And then you left. The buffer lifted, and what followed was not punishment delivered from above. It was simply reality without grace, softening its edges. Chosen ones, they never expected this, and they really didn't expect us to keep talking. You've noticed it. Chosen one channels disappearing, videos pulled, voices scrubbed from the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice, and now we have something they truly can't silence. The technology used to suppress consciousness has been reverse-engineered, and Destiny Engine is the result. What was once used against humanity is now your ascension weapon. Join Destiny Engine and you're supporting your favorite channels while leveling up yourself at the same time. It's a 360 win. Joined, you can now MK Ultra yourself into 5D superpowers. Destiny Engine bypasses the conscious mind and rewrites the source code directly. Reality bends faster. Synchronicities stack. Your nervous system upgrades to a higher bandwidth. Put on headphones. Press play. That's all. Start your Destiny Engine trial today. Risk-free. You switch sides of history. Click the link in the description. The takeover is internal. On the other side of your exit, plans that had been moving started stalling. Connections that had seemed solid began showing their actual condition. The piece that was expected to arrive in the counterfeit turned out to be a performance that everyone involved had to work exhausting effort to maintain. And the quiet, the real, settled, room-shifting quiet that you used to bring without even trying, became completely unfindable. Because you cannot manufacture the presence of a chosen one, you can only feel the weight of its absence once it is gone. What with Stein? The grief came, even if it was never called that, even if it was buried under noise, new activity, and whatever could be posted publicly to signal that everything was fine. Something underneath all of that performance grieved, because some losses are so specific and so irreplaceable that no amount of distraction can fill the exact shape they leave behind. Join, but now turn your eyes to your side of that same moment, because your side is the actual point of this story. When you walked away, something that had been compressed inside you started to expand. The grace you had been pouring into ground that would not hold it came home. It stopped serving someone who did not deserve it and started moving on your behalf. The doors that should have opened sooner, the ones that were delayed by where you were positioned, started moving. Your exit was not the end of your story, it was the activation of it. The betrayal itself, the act of choosing wrong and pushing out the chosen one, unknowingly released you into everything that had always been waiting. That launch was set off by the betrayal, and the one who set it off has to watch the whole thing from the outside. What was revealed at the end was not a departure from who that person had always been. It was the confirmation of it, the manipulation, the revised history, the version of events in which you were cast as the problem, the attempt to damage your name in order to protect an ego that could not bear accountability, the shift from claiming to love you to treating you like a threat, not because you changed, but because your presence started costing something that was never going to be paid willingly, the truth, your light, your consistency, your integrity, your real and unperformed love was making the inner darkness visible. Not because you were trying to expose anything, simply because being genuinely aligned in a space with someone who is not aligned produces that effect. Light does not try to expose darkness, it just exists. And darkness in the presence of light has to make a decision, transform or fight. Why? And the fight looked like betrayal, like choosing someone lesser, like running a quiet campaign designed to make you feel like the one who had it wrong. But beneath all of that, the real driver was simpler and sadder than malice. It was fear, the fear of being truly seen by someone who could actually see, the fear of being held to a standard that felt unreachable, the fear that real love, which requires you to show up real in return, would expose every place where the inner work had not been done. And so instead of rising to meet what you offered, a retreat was made, back into comfort, back into familiar dysfunction, back into a version of connection that requires nothing because it offers nothing real. Your presence demanded growth, and that demand was rejected. The counterfeit demanded nothing. That felt like relief, not because the counterfeit was better, but because choosing mediocrity feels easier in the short term than becoming the kind of person who deserves something excellent. Something easier than growth was chosen. Those are completely different things, and right now, on the other side of that choice, the evidence of what easy actually produces is accumulating daily. Your elevation keeps appearing, quiet, consistent, undeniable, and every time it is seen, the weight of what was discarded gets a little heavier. That weight is not your concern, it is their education, and you are not the teacher anymore. Restlessness has moved in and will not leave. No amount of noise, activity, or new performance can quiet it, because restlessness is not simply a feeling, it is a signal. It is the soul communicating that the path being walked is not the one that was supposed to be walked, that something essential is missing, and that the trade made did not produce what was promised. That signal does not stop until something honest is done about it. The counterfeit is delivering exactly what counterfeits always deliver. What looked exciting in the beginning is now expensive and exhausting to maintain. What was once called passion is now just chaos with no resolution and no reward. And in the private moments, the ones that cannot be filled with content or distracted away by an audience, the comparison arrives uninvited every single time. The measuring happens, and the measuring never produces a result that justifies the trade. Evidence of your elevation keeps appearing. What was expected was stumbling. What was hoped for was proof that the loss was not as large as it feels. But what keeps appearing instead is you, moving forward, growing, becoming more clearly and powerfully yourself with every season. And every time that evidence appears, the regret does not fade, it deepens, because the regret is not just emotional, it is spiritual. It is the soul recognizing that what was discarded was a divine assignment, not just a relationship. And divine assignments, the ones that were real, heaven-sent, and carrying access and covering, do not get replaced by choosing their opposite. Your peace was not common, your love was not replaceable. The private, unavoidable, impossible to argue with recognition of those two facts, is the truest form of consequence that exists. It is not shame delivered from outside. It is recognition rising from within, the kind you cannot argue with, the kind that follows a person into every room they enter for as long as they refuse to be honest about what they threw away. You did not create that consequence. It was created the moment the choice was made. You simply had the discernment to stop absorbing the cost of someone else's spiritual carelessness. You are rare in a specific and verifiable way, not as a self-flattering idea, but as a spiritual reality. Most people spend their entire lives reaching for the kind of love, loyalty, and depth that you give naturally, without strategy, without calculation, and without a return policy attached to it. You love because it is who you are. You carry people because your nature is built for it, and you do it with a grace that most people only ever read about or hear described by someone lucky enough to have experienced it once. That is not ordinary. It cannot be manufactured, replicated, or replaced by choosing something louder and more chaotic. And here is the truth you need to plant in yourself right now, and refuse to let anyone pull up again. A diamond in the wrong hands does not become less of a diamond. It does not lose its value because someone undervalued it. It does not become common because someone chose glass over it. The diamond remains exactly what it is, completely intact, fully itself, waiting for the hands that actually understand what they are holding. You were not diminished by the betrayal. You were not reduced by the rejection. Everything that happened reflected the limitations of the person who made the choice, their vision, their capacity, their inability to hold something real. None of it changed what you actually are. The moment you stop performing your worth for people who are not equipped to recognize it, the moment you stop explaining yourself to those who do not have the vocabulary for what you are saying, the moment you stop compressing your full self into spaces that were never built to hold you, something shifts. The right environments begin to open. The right people begin to appear. The right opportunities begin moving toward you with a momentum that requires very little effort from you. Because a diamond that stops pretending to be glass in order to make others comfortable starts commanding exactly the attention it was always meant to receive. What real rarity produces, when it is finally operating freely, is gravity. The right people feel drawn toward it without being able to fully explain why. The right situations begin to organize themselves around it. Doors that were always supposed to open begin opening, not because you forced them, but because your presence is no longer being dimmed by proximity to something that was consuming your light, rather than honoring it. Pay attention to what is moving in your life right now. Pay attention to who is arriving. Pay attention to the quality of what is beginning to open, because what is coming toward you now is calibrated to the real version of you, not the compressed, managed version that was trying to survive in the wrong environment. The full version, the unedited version, the chosen one who never actually needed permission to take up space. The grace you carried into that season, the grace you poured out freely, extended without condition, and prayed into an atmosphere that did not deserve it, did not disappear when the relationship ended. It did not evaporate. It did not waste itself on an outcome that refused to honor it. It came home to you. And grace, when it returns to its source, when it stops being poured into ground that will not hold it and starts moving freely through the life of the person who carries it, transforms into something entirely different. It becomes momentum. It becomes a divine current that moves things on your behalf without requiring you to fight for every inch. It becomes the reason doors open without being forced, and the reason favor begins arriving in places you had not even thought to look. But something else comes back with it, and this is the part that matters most for your healing. Your appetite comes back, your genuine hunger for things that are actually good, your ability to receive love that does not arrive with a hidden cost attached, your capacity to sit in something real without bracing for the moment it will be taken away. Because one of the quietest forms of damage that happens when you stay too long in a place that does not honor you is that you begin to normalize what is wrong. You begin to read confusion as depth. You begin to read emotional unavailability as complexity. You begin to adjust your expectations downward until what you are asking for is a fraction of what you were always supposed to receive. Coming back to yourself, to your actual standards, to the real measure of what you deserve, to the full truth of what love is supposed to feel like when it is genuine, recalibrates everything. And that recalibration is not a small thing. It is the foundation of everything you build from this point forward. Every connection you enter now, every space you walk into, every person you allow near the things you carry, all of it will be measured against an accurate standard, not a diminished one. The chosen one level standard that was always yours and was never meant to be negotiated away. What was chosen in your place was designed to look like more. It was loud, visible, and the kind of energy that generates attention and makes every moment feel like a production. And for a season, that production felt exciting and alive. But here is what a performance built on hollowness cannot do, no matter how long it runs or how many people it convinces. Cannot hold someone in safety when the audience disappears. It cannot build the kind of knowing that only comes from real presence over real time. It cannot sit in silence without that silence becoming a source of anxiety. It cannot offer growth without immediately making growth feel like an attack. It cannot remain loyal when loyalty becomes inconvenient, because loyalty was never part of its nature to begin with. It was always a performance in search of an audience, and audiences eventually stop showing up. The cracks in the private reality are now visible to anyone willing to look without the filter of what is being performed publicly. The excitement that was once called passion has revealed itself as an engine that requires constant fuel and produces nothing durable. And in the unavoidable quiet moments, the ones that cannot be covered by activity or content or any kind of show, what sits there is not peace. It is the specific discomfort of someone who traded something real for something that was only ever a role being played. You were never playing a role, you were living. And the difference between performing love and actually living it is the difference between something that sustains and something that collapses under the weight of its own maintenance. Every counterfeit eventually arrives at its moment of collapse, revealing itself daily in the private accounting of what is actually being received versus what was promised. And that accounting does not favor the trade that was made. You are no longer in the audience for any of it. You stepped away from the performance entirely, and that decision, quiet, complete, requiring no announcement, was the most powerful statement you could have made. There is a specific kind of regret that does not soften with time, it deepens, not because the wound was left untreated, but because the wound was earned, and an earned wound carries a weight that originates from the part of a person that cannot lie to itself, the part that knows exactly what was done and cannot unknow it. Wait, that weight is being carried right now. Not loudly, not in any way that would be admitted to anyone who asked, but in the private inventory of what is present and what is absent, and what the difference between those two things costs every single day. Your absence shows up in places that cannot be controlled. It shows up in the moments when something small in the current situation reveals what is missing before the comparison can be stopped. It shows up when depth is needed, and nothing real is there to offer it. It shows up when genuine support is required, and what arrives instead is performance dressed as care. It shows up in the prayer that eventually gets prayed, the one asking to get back something that was already surrendered. Here is what makes that echo permanent, rather than temporary. It is not memory that sustains it. It is contrast. Every day spent inside something that is not real makes the memory of what real actually felt like sharper, not softer. The gap between what was chosen and what was given up does not close over time, it widens, because the counterfeit keeps producing the same hollow results, while the evidence of your elevation keeps quietly accumulating on the other side. That echo cannot be outrun by changing locations. It cannot be silenced by adding more noise. It cannot be filled by finding a new audience for the same performance, because it is not located in a place or a circumstance. It is located in the person who made the choice. It goes wherever they go. It sits at every table they sit at. It waits in every quiet space they enter. And it will remain there until the only thing that has ever been able to dissolve it, genuine honesty, is finally chosen. Your life moving forward, becoming more fully, more freely, and more powerfully yourself with every passing season, is the only response the situation ever required. Most people look at betrayal and catalogue what was taken from them. Chosen ones, once they are done grieving what genuinely deserved to be grieved, look at betrayal and recognize what it released inside them, and what was released inside you is worth naming clearly. Your discernment was activated at a level it had never operated before. You no longer have to reason your way to the truth about a situation or a person. You feel it. When something is performed rather than genuine, you know before a logical reason can even be constructed. When someone is asking you to compress yourself to fit a space that was never built for who you actually are, You recognize it before you have spent enough time there to be damaged. That is not a minor development. That is a spiritual upgrade, a gift embedded inside the wound that will protect every future connection and every future opportunity for the rest of your life. Your clarity returned as well. Clarity about what you will and will not accept. Clarity about the distinction between staying somewhere because you are genuinely led to stay, and staying somewhere because you are afraid of what leaving will cost you. That line is now drawn in a place no amount of charm, nostalgia, or manufactured urgency will move. Your voice came back too, the one that went quiet during the season of managing someone else's comfort, the one that learned to translate itself into smaller, more palatable terms to avoid overwhelming a space that could not hold its full frequency. That voice is returning now, and it carries an authority it did not have before, because authority is not something granted by someone else's approval. It is forged by surviving the withdrawal of that approval and discovering that you are still standing, still whole, still entirely yourself. They attempted to bury you. The minimizing, the revised narratives, the discarding, all of it was an attempt to make you small enough to start questioning whether you had ever been worth much to begin with. But what they did not account for, what every person who tries to diminish a chosen one eventually discovers, is that what gets buried in good soil does not stay buried. It grows. The weight that was applied became the resistance that built your strength. The pressure that was meant to keep you down became the force that pushed you upward. And the season that was authored as your defeat produced a version of you that no season of comfort could ever have built. You were not buried, you were planted, and what is rising now is not what they tried to put down. It is everything that was always in you, finally uncontained, finally moving without restriction, finally heading toward the life that was always waiting on the other side of this fire. You move with a different quality than you did before, not with arrogance, with the quiet ease of someone who has survived what they feared most and arrived on the other side still standing, still intact, still carrying everything they came in with plus everything the fire added. There is a settledness to you now that cannot be performed or imitated. It can only be earned, and you earned it in the hardest possible way by going through something designed to end you and choosing every day afterward not to be ended by it. The favor moving in your life right now is specific and targeted. It is moving toward the real version of you, not the version that made itself smaller and quieter to fit inside a space that was never built for your actual dimensions. The full version, the one that does not need to be adjusted downward so that someone else can feel comfortable standing beside you. The people coming toward you now carry a different quality of recognition. They will not need you to explain your worth to them. They will not require a demonstration of your value before they show up with their own. They will simply know what they are in the presence of, the way people always know, even if they cannot articulate it, when something genuinely rare has arrived. And unlike what came before, they will protect what they recognize. They will be worthy of what they receive, not because they are perfect, but because they are aligned. And alignment recognizes alignment without needing it spelled out. Watch what becomes possible when your energy is no longer diverted toward maintaining something that was consuming it, without producing anything real in return. Watch what emerges when your grace is received rather than simply used. Watch the version of yourself that has been waiting to come fully into view, not a new person, but the most complete, most unguarded, and most genuinely powerful expression of the person you have always been. The story that was told about you cannot follow you into this season. The smallness that was assigned to you has no jurisdiction here. Because here, in this chapter, in this version of your life, you are operating at the full capacity of what you were always carrying. And fullness leaves no room for the narratives that diminishment needs in order to survive. taught you, taught you, taught you, taught you, taught you, taught you, taught you. Vapta taught you, 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 taught. A mistake is something done without knowing better. What was done was a choice. It was made with full awareness of what was being discarded, and in plain view of the quality that was being traded away, and that distinction matters enormously. It means the weight being carried now is not confusion, it is recognition. It is the full, private, unavoidable recognition of exactly what was had and exactly what was chosen instead. Both of those realities are known, and they must be lived with simultaneously, every single day, with no reconciliation available between them. That is not your burden to fix or manage or carry any guilt about. That is the curriculum being worked through on the other side of your exit. Let it run its course. Your life going forward, your peace, your growth, your alignment, your fullness is the only response this situation ever needed from you. Not an argument, not a campaign to prove what was lost, not a performance of thriving designed for anyone else's observation. Just you. Fully becoming what you were always meant to be, in environments that are finally equipped to receive it. The chosen one does not stay where they are not chosen. The chosen one does not shrink to accommodate the discomfort of those who cannot hold their full presence. The chosen one does not spend a season explaining their value to someone who looked at it clearly and decided it was not worth protecting. The chosen one rises quietly, powerfully, without apology, and allows the life that follows to speak every word that needs to be said. So rise, chosen one. You were the blessing when you walked in. You are the blessing right now, and everything that was traded away, everything that was exchanged for noise and chaos, and a counterfeit that could never sustain the weight of what it promised, none of it disappeared. It came home to you. It was always yours. It will always be yours. The story did not end when they walked away. It started moving in the right direction. Now go live like it.